Good morning and welcome to Company Culture with Yvette C. Owens. I'm so excited and thrilled to have with us today Mr. Alfred Enagbare. He is a friend and a colleague, and we have been chatting most recently about some of the successes that he's been having in his organization. And I thought, how better, who better to have on this episode when we're talking about putting your whole heart back in it again? Into your work, into your assignment, into your day. Who wants to be miserable through the day? Not me. I know you don't either. So if you're on this, like and share and like, make comments. We will respond. If you on replay, do hashtag replay, and we will get back to you with any questions and responses to your questions that you have or any comments that you have. Thank you again. And Alfred, thank you for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you here with me.
Thank you very much, Yvette. It's a pleasure being here, and thanks for inviting me to be part of the show.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell us just a little bit more about your experience before we jump into the topic of today?
Okay, I have been in human resources and operations for a number of years. I work for four different large global organizations, retail, going from a retail McDonald's and then into Novartis, which is a combination of pharmaceutical and consumer health. And then I had Forward's Financial Services and then Travelers Insurance. And now I am with a healthcare company organization called Commonwealth Care Alliance, based in the New England, Boston area, which we just started expanding into national with Michigan, California, and Rhode Island.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That's an extensive experience. So I'm sure you are quite capable of sharing the insights on how do we keep our heart in the game, right? How do we keep going? And when we think about all the things that people have been through over the last few years, people have become very thoughtful about their day to day activity, the moment by moment activity, because life has become so precious, and so they're really being thoughtful about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and who they're doing it with. And sometimes it causes them to really think, maybe there's something better, or maybe there's something that can give me more joy, or things like that. And so today's topic, I thought, could be really good for across industries, across different types of where people are spending their time. How do you keep your heart in the game? How do you bring that heart back? Because we've all experienced some level of trauma over the last few years, and now it's time, it feels like it's the right time to start picking that up, and some people have been able to maintain that. So my first question is, let's talk about, how do we get here? What causes organizations to forget about the individuals and that individuals matter?
Great. That's a very good question, Yvette. I think over the years, organizations, leaders, and managers in business establishment have always focused on productivity that the employee provide and focus on results in order to drive the business. And they've been doing that for a number of years without really finding out or asking the employees what kind of impact that is.
Mm,
So don't get me wrong, businesses are there to deliver results. There is the expectations that are required for businesses to perform. But the sad part is that managers and leaders and organizations really do not seek employee input as they establish those goals, as they define what the employees need to be doing in order
mm,
to continue their career journey. So it is something that is said, and sometimes the employees don't feel connected, and the leaders and the organizations don't even want to find out why, because you want to focus on the results. So that drives the employee into a different direction if they are not connected.
mhm,
So the last couple of years or 2.5 years with the pandemic has really brought that into light where
Mm,
employees are now saying, what is important to me? What is
mhm.
valuable to me? The whole quality of life discussion that we've been having these years really has come into play in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
when unfortunately a number of people lost loved ones or someone they're very close to has caused them to reevaluate to say, am I really on the right track? What is really my value, my personal value? That have to come first before I really yield to what the organization may be expecting from me.
Right, right, and that's a really good question, and sometimes people are afraid to even ask that question
Yeah,
because they don't know what's the next, right? It's like,
exactly.
okay, if I ask myself the question and I figure out that this might not be it, what do I do next, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Or so it's like that's a hard question. So people need to be able to get that courage, right?
yeah,
So when you the organizations are trying to figure this out. There are some that are really trying to do a really good job in figuring out. They recognize they are where they are. It
exactly.
is what it is.
Right.
And they're trying to figure it out. There's some that are still with their heads in the sand and like, oh, we're good. Well, everybody's fine. They just need to all come back together. So first, let's talk about the individual because the individual does matter. And I mentioned that in my book, No Boss is Allowed, Lead to Serve and Transform. That's the first point, the first position when I compared bosses to leaders is
Yeah.
that the individual matters. So as an individual, how am I to keep my heart in the game, even if the
Mhm.
organization doesn't?
Yes.
What
I,
would you be suggest?
yeah. What I suggest is there is a phrase that I normally use. You have to be your authentic self.
Hmm.
You have to start with personal values to say what is important to you and how do you want to be seen and how do you want to operate. Right now, I would say researchers, there are studies out there that have really shown that really when the employees speak up, their voice matters. Now, it may not be the current organization you are in. That doesn't mean you should be handicapped to that organization or be
Hmm.
here with golden glove to that organization. You have to spread your horizon. First thing is to ask the questions to say, here is really what I want to be focusing on. Does that align with the organizational values that you are in?
Hmm.
If it doesn't align, then you have some choices or some decisions to do. And then you really know to say, okay, do I have the skill set that really align with what I want to do? If it doesn't, there are several ways that you can go about enhancing your skill set to make yourself marketable. When you don't ask those questions, things will just continue to be how the managers and how the leaders have always run you. Now, sometimes it's really scary taking that first step
Yeah.
to ask those questions, but that shouldn't deter us from taking that first step because if you don't, somebody else will continue to create a path for you that may or may not align with what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is scary. And sometimes, like you've said, we just have to figure out what it is we want to do, right? And it could be in the same space that you're already in, or it
Absolutely.
could be someplace
Completely.
else,
Yeah.
or you might need to carve it out and create it in that space. And so um have you had experiences with having to do those type of things, either create it in that space or figure out what aspect of your position
Yeah.
you really need to hone in on to get your passion back,
Yeah.
or you've had to carve out something that somebody didn't have, that position didn't call for, but you knew they needed, and that would help you get your heart back engaged.
Yeah.
And as you're answering that, thank you for those who have joined. Please share this, make your comments. We're here for you today so you can get your heart back, your whole heart back in the game. So back to that question, Alfred.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it go back for me. It go back to the comment I made a little while ago about defining who you are and what is your personal value and what is the things that drives you.
mhm,
And throughout my career, that has always been the number one for me. I have never like any organization or any leader to hold me hostage. I gave you at the intro the various organizations that I have worked for. There
Mm-hmm.
was a time where in those wonderful organizations, love all of them, those organizations, but there came a time where I said it was time to move on. So nothing against the organization, nothing they did, but for me, I wanted to get something, come back to I enjoy, that I love, different space. So if you take a look, they are all different industries. I needed different challenges to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I don't have this now. What else can I go to challenge and all of that? And it's a whole concept about the whole change management that we all talk about.
Yeah.
When you started, it's very scary. It's very, very scary. It's not easy. You're going to a new territory that you may or may not be familiar with. But the key thing, though, is that you have to be willing to learn.
Right.
I work with a leader throughout, during my career journey that really says, if you come to work every day and you are not challenged, you should be asking yourself, why am I doing this?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. If you're
Yeah.
not challenged.
Great question.
So that really drives me. And as I work with individuals in various organizations, as I coach and as I have discussion, that's exactly what I say to them. I say, look, if you're getting up one day as you're getting ready to start your work day, and then you're asking yourself, do I need to go there again today? Why am I doing this? Then you know it's time for a change.
Mm-hmm.
May not have anything to do with the organization, but it's really you that is no longer feeling challenged. It's really
Yeah.
you, it's no longer lining up with your values. It could be
Mm-hmm.
a great organization, but if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't line up with you, then you are slowly giving yourself away without even realizing it.
Right.
And by the time you come to say, wow, I shouldn't have done that, it might be too late at that point in time.
Yeah, it's like dying a slow emotional death, right? I
Exactly.
mean, because your all of that energy and all of your emotions get twisted up in that, and then you start acting out, or you start having you're responding to people negatively. I love when you say you never allowed an organization to hold you hostage. And
Absolutely.
let's just face it, sometimes you can feel like you're being held hostage. I can't go anywhere else. I need to still take care of my family. I have nowhere else to go, so I'm just going to sit here and settle and start to go into like a quicksand almost, right? And
Yes.
it's like it just keeps sucking you in and sucking you in instead of you saying, "Nope, today is that turning point and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take the courage." And you mentioned coaching. So, can you talk about some of that? Because some folks think I got to do it on my own, but there is a value in pulling somebody along and allowing somebody to invest in you, or if you're a leader, to invest in someone else so that you can help them make that journey or get to a better place, a healthier heart place. Talk about that for a second.
Yes. Absolutely. The first thing that I will say, is that never stop learning. Never stop learning. Wherever you are in your career journey, and whether you never stop learning. That's number one. Number two, you cannot go through life, especially these days, without having some element of coaching, wherever they come from you. And the way you can only expand your coaching is through your network.
Hmm.
I also recommend to people to have a group of network that can really coach them. It doesn't have to be in your workplace. It can be people you respect outside of the workplace. I still got a ton of network,
Hmm.
of coaches throughout my career, and they have all really contributed to my work success. I
Hmm.
have. There are times where I hear things that I really didn't want to hear from the coaches. There
Right.
are times where I start asking myself, why did I even call her? Why did I even call him? You said,
Right.
no, that you didn't have to beat me up. I mean, I can beat myself up.
Hmm.
But those are really great feedback that you get from coaching to say, here is really what it is. One of the things that coaches would do for you is they don't give you the answer, but they give you an idea to think about, and you come with the answer yourself because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Sometimes you think you're doing everything right. Sometimes you think you're the best in everything. There's someone looking at you to say, no, that you're not. You need
Right.
some assistance there. You need some assistance there. So you need people to help you with that. And that's what coaches do. And you have to be ready to take the feedback. I see feedback as a gift.
Yeah,
Because
for
someone
sure.
care enough to give you that favor, what they care about you.
Hmm.
It may not be what you want, whether positive, negative, you got to be open to it. Because if you don't know it, and then you will work on it. So I go back to say, to your viewers and listeners to say, if you don't have a coach, please find one and get at least one. Create a network and then be open with them, give them the license to give you, a constructive feedback that
Right.
help you to continue to grow, both professionally and personally as well, because I have seen that very, very valuable.
Right. And I love that, obviously, as a coach. But the other thing I want to encourage you, because I'm also a coach, and I had someone say to me, "You're a coach and you have a coach?" Yeah, absolutely. We all need, as you said, coaches, and you said it really well, have coaches around you. But one of the things I want to encourage you is that you own what you do with what that coach shares with you, and even the pace. So, it can seem like they're pushing, and maybe you're doing your very best to adapt what they're sharing with you and to apply it. But you feel it when you get to that point of feeling like I'm overwhelmed and I'm doing the very best I can, but you feel like they're pushing you beyond that, then you need to take a breather, step back and relax and figure out, why am I feeling overwhelmed? And then also recognize that this is a personal journey.
Mhm.
And kudos to you if you're on the journey. If you're on the journey, kudos. That's the first point. And so don't get discouraged that if you start to feel overwhelmed, where I feel like they told me these one, two, three, four, and I can only seem to get to one and two, and I'm doing my best to get to three and four, but I haven't gotten there yet. It's your journey. Just keep moving. And that's what as you said, Alfred, it's not, the coach is not going to do the work for you, but they are there to say, give you tips on things on what you should do, what they're seeing that are blind spots to us, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And that again is how we talk about getting that heart back into the game again. The
Yeah.
other thing I would like you to expand upon, because I cannot tell you how many people in this work that I've run into who said, networking, I don't like to network. I don't want to do networking. It's like, what in the world? How you going to get out there if you're not going to meet new people? So talk about networking and how that can become a friendly thing for you, a positive thing, as
Yeah.
opposed to a negative situation.
It's like saying I don't want to network these days. It's like saying I don't want to eat.
That's it. That's it.
Because it is really the order of the day. And again, it's not just doing the network just the sake of doing network. It's really building a learning opportunity, like as I said earlier, to really say, okay, you have this now. It's not really let's go in, let's have wine and cheese, and let's chit chat, and then let's go home. That's really not what I'm talking about here. I'm really talking about really people that you can say, here is really what I'm dealing with, or here is where I want to go, or here is what I want to do, or here is the skill set I think I may have. Oh, by the way, you have been, I need you to come and observe me, whether in my workspace or whether the things that I do or whatever it is, and what assistance can you provide me to say, here is what I'm doing well, here's what I need to improve on, or here is what it's really that kind of networking that is all about. It doesn't have to be your industry either. It can be
Hmm.
anywhere. I have in my network, I have a lot of business leaders that has really continued to give me coaching, which is why in my profession, when I coach and work with my business partners, I do not speak HR talk. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't talk human resources talk, because,
Right.
there are some human resources professionals that all they talk about is human resources. I don't, because I learned that from business leaders who have been, in my network, to say, if you cannot, as an example, if you cannot tell a business leader whatever human resources program or initiative you're bringing, how it's going to impact the bottom line, they're not going to listen to you.
Right.
So you got to do the homework, to be able to do that as an example. So
Yep.
that's, when you do, but I wouldn't have known that if someone hasn't cared enough to point that out to me.
Right.
So why it may be scary in the beginning for your viewers and listeners out there to start a network, take a baby step. You start with a baby step, someone that you're comfortable with. Now, maybe in your workplace, who is not your boss, to your point earlier, that who is not your boss or
Right.
your manager. It could be a colleague. It could be someone, you work with cross-functionally. You can start there. It could be someone outside of work that you respect, that they know what they do. You can start from there and then start with baby steps. And then you slowly, you see you can continue to build your network. And it takes time,
Right.
takes energy.
Yeah.
So I also coach folks when I said, do you just go to work and go home? They say, yeah. I said, why don't you oh, I don't have the time. I said, you have to make the time.
Exactly.
Make the time, whether it's after work or whether it's lunchtime or whether it's weekend. Because if you don't make the time to enrich yourself with this learning, who's going to do it for you?
Absolutely.
And so that's why you have to almost go through self assessment, if you will, and really what is important to you, and then you take it one step at a time.
Yeah, and it's really going to end up being a gift to you, because think about it's really how we use our time, and are we using our time effectively? You mentioned perfectly lunchtime.
Yes.
Are you just taking your lunchtime to say, okay, I need to get away from all of this and I'm just going to stop, Well, do get away from it all, but get away from it with someone who you just want to learn more about. And you mentioned it also about the authenticity. You have to be authentic in everything you do. So if you're networking just to get ahead and you got something that I want and I need, so I'm just going to network you until I get it. No, then that is extra energy that you're going to expend and you're going to be miserable in doing it. But if you want to have coffee with somebody, hey, I want to learn more about you, the person, in what you do, have coffee, have tea. During the pandemic, I've learned more and benefited more from virtual teas and virtual coffees. Just get on the call 15 minutes with somebody. You're going to take a break from your work anyway.
And absolutely.
Make it beneficial,
Yeah, exactly.
and have lunch with folks. Go to have coffee or something after work or whatever, and just be authentically interested in someone else. And you never know what gift you're giving them,
Yeah,
and as well as what gift you're getting. Good
yeah.
morning, Laverne. Thank you for joining, and good morning to our other viewers. Please share this. We're having a great conversation here with Dr. Alfred Enagbare. I probably messed that up. Sorry. uh, um, but my friend Alfred, Dr. Alfred, and he's sharing so much enlightenment about how we can bring and put our heart back in the game. Because, ladies and gentlemen, how many of us know we have to have our heart in the game somewhere? And even if it's for the very basic necessity of that, I want to pay my mortgage, I want to pay my car note, I want to be able to get my kids through school. But you don't want to just live an existing life just because you're doing that. You want to be able to grow and ever learning, as you're mentioning. So let's switch it to, we've spent the first part of this talking about the individual. Let's switch it to the organization. And you have a fantastic story about how when the organization rallies with the people to make a change, that it just was fantastic and phenomenal. Momentum was gained there. But can a leadership of an organization best create a culture where the people want to put their heart back in the game?
Okay.
Because we really been spending time about, I'm the individual, I'm going to do the best for me. It might not be happening in the organization and culture around me, but I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring it, and hopefully they catch on. But how can a leader and an organization create that space where people they're knocking over, running down the street? I want to be a part of what y'all doing.
Yeah,
How
Joy.
about that?
It's really, it start with, as we talk about the individual, right? It start with the leaders as well of an organization to really create that environment where the employee have a voice and the leader have a voice, and the leader or manager really listening. The organization should not assume. When I say organization, I'm talking the leaders, I'm talking the managers, should not assume they know what the employee wants.
Right.
They have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Here is where I am going. Here is really the direction or the expectations that we're setting. How do you feel about that? What do we need to do about it? It's not like the leaders or the managers are giving away their authority. It's really embracing collaboration and teamwork. And the leaders needs to go through this as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you a practical example of what we are going through in my current organization,
Yeah.
which we really are proud of. We, when the pandemic that came, those that were not serving members or patients, of course, they continue to work because that's really the core of what we do.
Right.
But the other ones that are not, we send them home. And then there was a time they're working virtually and all of that. Now, as the pandemic started slowing down, there were some organizations that said, bring everybody back 100%. There were some organizations that said, you must come back on this day. So, but what we did was say, why don't we find out from the employees what they want? Because productivity hasn't suffered since everybody went
Mm.
remote. The results has always been there. Why would you want to force them back where some of them will spend an hour and a half traffic each way, where
That
they
part.
could have been more productive in that 3 hours and get the
Mm-hmm.
work done?
Mm-hmm.
So we created a survey to ask the employees, how would you like to work? Do
Right.
you want to continue 100% remote? Do you want to do a hybrid? If you want
Mm-hmm.
to do a hybrid, what are the days, in the week? So we
Right.
collected those data. And that is what we are acting on. So the employee feel, number one, we ask. Number two, their voices were heard. And number three, for the organization to understand, we put a caveat there to say, if you want to work 100% remote, that's fine. But if your performance drops because
Mm.
you've distracted, we can have a conversation to say, maybe we need to think about an alternative work schedule.
That's
You
good.
understand that?
That's good.
You understand that? Because the thing we realize is that why I orchestrated that process is because during the pandemic, there were daycare issues,
Mm-hmm.
there were adult care issues,
Mm-hmm.
there were traffic issues, there were a number of all of that. Now, with that all simple asking the employees how they want to what we collect the data, one of your viewers just said abuse morale. Absolutely. It
Mm-hmm.
will abuse the morale. Employee is so engaged. And now this year, my organization won, the top Boston Globe top places to work, which was a
Yay.
reflection from the employee. We also won that 2 years ago. We
Mm-hmm.
also won the best disability play, to work, inclusive disability this year. And those are the employees giving this external, contact, the feedback, not me, not the
Yeah.
leadership team. Because my point is that as leaders and as organizations, you got to create that environment to have
Yes.
the employee be part of that community, not just
Mm-hmm.
going there to work and then go
Mm-hmm.
home. They have to be part of that community.
Yeah. And so what are the benefits? Because, you mentioned it even earlier. People have to understand what's in it for me. Why should I do this? So what are the benefits to organizations? Because some let's just face it, leadership does what leadership saw their
Right.
predecessors do. And, it worked. It seemed to, profits still came in, revenue still was generated. So what benefits are there that we can share with leadership, organization leaderships to say, at least think about a different way, even though it seems on the surface that everything is going okay, but there could be something underneath that's not working as well, and you can get even greater gain. And
Right.
who doesn't want even greater gain? Yeah, you could be successful, but what if you made these one, two, three changes that could just take your what you're experiencing and you're satisfied with to a whole nother level that you didn't even know existed?
Yeah.
What can you speak to that?
Exactly. Now, leaders, as you know, like to deal in facts. They
Yeah.
just want to know, okay, what is in there. So the first place I think is that you run an engagement survey of your workforce. An
Hmm.
engagement survey to really find out how they feel about work. It's not opinion survey. It's very different, as we all know, engagement survey. Now, there are that engagement survey, when you run that, is going to tell you how your employees are engaged. It will give
Hmm.
you, their engagement score. And there are studies that have been done all out there that the higher your employee are engaged, the more productivity they are for you. The
Yeah.
more productivity, the more you get the results. So that's
Hmm.
one benefit. If your employees are fully engaged, right, and then the number goes up, you're gonna get the return in their productivity. That is
Right.
one. The second thing that the organization will get is care. Who wouldn't want a positive atmosphere in their own office where employees are coming to you as a leader to say, hey, I think I have enough bandwidth. And what else can I do?
Right.
I need to do that. That's another benefit that you don't have to beat people in the head to do the job. When people are satisfied, when they enjoy what they do, you don't even have to tell them to do things. Sometimes leaders come to me and say, hey, I think I want to promote this person. I say, what? I didn't even ask her to do this. Yeah, boom, 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 yeah. The employee don't even know they're getting promoted.
Right.
That is the benefit that an organization gets. It goes beyond the paycheck. It
Yeah.
goes, there's more than that. It's just everyone's so excited. And that breed, again, the organization where people will say, I want to be part of that. It helps your recruiting when
Right.
people, because your employee will go and tell their best
Hmm.
friend to say, you need to come here and all of that. It helps your reputation. It helps as an organization. It helps the branding. It helps your social responsibility. If you sell products, if you happen to sell products, it helps your process. So it's a low win for the organization. It's not just only for the employee. But sometimes, though, to your point, Yvette, leaders don't know what they don't know either. They
Right.
pretend to know they don't. So my predecessor did it this way, and then I have to continue doing it that way
Hmm.
without even taking a step to say things are changing. What worked 5 years ago may not be working now. How do I get help? How
Right.
do I get assistance? How do I get a third party to come and take a look at what we are doing to say, you no longer need to do this. Here is where you're going, and all of that. Leaders need that too. But sometimes they don't realize that, or it's too late. And
Right.
when I say it's too late, they have really disenfranchised a lot of the employees that they have. I mean, how many times have we heard employees don't leave companies, they leave managers?
That's it.
We've heard that, right?
That's
So
it.
speaks all of that right there. So I always, try to coach leader to say, you know, when you as a leader set the environment, positive environment for your workforce, your job is a lot easier
Hmm.
because they are going to do the best
Yeah.
for you and not to let you down. But if you have to be the cop, the traffic controller, to be directing every time, what happens when you go on vacation?
Yeah.
Let's take one. Things fall apart.
Hmm.
Or you then say, I'm not going on vacation because if I go, things are going to fall apart. That's not
Right.
helping either, right?
That's right.
So it's really creating the environment, developing your team, and let them do that. The benefits anonymous for the organization and for the individual.
Yeah, and we are talking this morning about putting your whole heart back in it again. And this is not just for I love the parallel that you're making. It's for the individual and the organization, and both are going to absolutely win. Um, let's see what Laverne is saying here. Organizations must create an environment for employees to feel a part of the organization's community, which will increase productivity and create a pleasant atmosphere. Absolutely.
Yeah, could
Absolutely.
100% in agreement, Levant. You just said it right, and that's really the message. It is there for both organizations, the leaders, the managers, the workforce, the employee. This is a really, nice way to put that in. And then I was saying, we talked about this earlier to say, if you're an individual in an organization when this is not happening, take a bold step to your manager. Ask these questions. Go to your manager, go to your leader. What have you got to lose? Ask the questions and all that. They may dismiss you the first time, but keep going back. Go back with some ideas, and all of that. And very soon, if they are smart leaders, they will listen to you. Or they will say, okay, I'm tired of hearing this from you. Why not? What ideas do you have? And then be ready to bring that in. There is no leader or manager that would not appreciate one of the employees bringing an idea to them that is going to help them. Unless, there's a little caveat there, unless that managers feel threatened that
Yeah.
you are after his or her job. And
Yeah.
which for me is really is very what's the word I'm looking for? Is very short-sighted of a manager to think that. I always say to my team, hey, I want you guys to kick me out of my chair. I want
That part.
you, this chair, I don't want to be sitting on this chair forever. I need one of you guys, to kick me out so I can go and do something else because I'm going
Yeah.
to get bored if I keep doing the same thing over. So, and then they look at me and they say, are you sure? I say, of course, whatever you
Hmm.
need to do to make that happen. Let's talk about that. Is it development? Is it learning new skills? Is it going to the, let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And that has really helped me in my career journey all these years. Because if I'll be honest with you, I tell you, some of my, network providers, some of my folks have really shown me that part several years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And it's like, so what you're mentioning is that, and I say this all the time, people want to know that they have a voice, they're being heard, and they have options. Just because they have options doesn't mean that they're going to take every option or
exactly
take your position. And I mentioned this in last week's broadcast around why should you collaborate and bring somebody along and look to come alongside leadership, because leaders need help too, and they need trusted people around them. And
right,
if you can get in that circle of being a trusted partner with a leader, then, and they're one who's of the same mindset to learn and grow and go for their next thing,
yes,
then you're in prime position to be considered for when they're ready to move on,
exactly,
right? So
absolutely,
leaders should be absolutely open
right.
to people sharing their voice, and especially if you don't know what to do.
Yeah,
If you're a leader and have no clue on how
right,
to do the things that Dr. Alfred and his teams are doing, then
yeah,
at least be open to hear the voices of the people around you.
right,
Get together and you all figure out how to create something absolutely phenomenal together,
right,
and you as that individual and those leaders become a trusted group, a network of people that are going to shape and shift your organization to something that you never ever expected together. Then you're in a prime position for when either that position is open or another position, or we talked about in the beginning, how do I bring my heart back? Create something. So when you're doing that and then you create,
right,
you start to create something where people are like, wait a minute, we don't have this on the docket, we don't have this in the organization, but we need it because this person is filling that gap. Then you're in a prime position to take it. So take the risk, use your voice, make sure you understand the options, and if you're a leader, open that space up for people to share,
right.
because what you don't know, they'll share with you, and then you can shape and form it the way you need it to form.
You see, Yvonne, as you say that, right? And then another comment come from Levon, leaders need trustworthy, especially if they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will, add to some of the things that you have just said, the old Robert Einstein definition of insanity.
Mm.
the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So
Yeah.
you have leaders that say, "Oh, I want a different outcome," but they're not changing what they're doing with their
Right.
work. Or and an individual to say, "I want to get promoted," but you're doing your mundane, you're going at a whatever the time you start, and then you do exactly the same thing, but no change. You're not going to get a different result. So, as we have been saying, right, is the individual and the leader, they've got to do something different if you want a different outcome. Whether, to your point, that whether is that your manager's job or whether it's somebody else's job or whether it's another, but even if you don't get that promotion that instant, but you've really learned a lot that
Yeah.
others are watching. You
Hmm.
continue to, put yourself out there. You learning, like I said in the beginning, got to be life has to be a continuous learning, regardless of where you are in your career journey. The day you stop learning, that is the day you rot. So
Right.
you continue, have to continue learning. Others are
Hmm.
watching you and all of that. And another thing a comment that I would say, but as you learn yourself and all of that, never go to your manager or your leader to say, when am I going to get promoted, when am I going to get promoted?
Mm.
And then that then become a noise, right?
Yeah.
That become a noise, and you can be branded to say, oh, he's always about himself or she's always about herself. But you can frame the conversation to be, hey, I want to do more.
Hmm.
How can I do more without mentioning the word promotion? Because sometimes when you mention the word promotion, that turns leaders off, that turn managers off. But say, how can I help some more? I can do more how can I reduce your workload,
Yeah.
my manager or my leader, and all of that. So that is the way you continue to open up and have the conversation. Again, as we've said, since we started this event, we're saying you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You got to take the first step. You got to be authentic about it. It's hard work. It's a lot of work. We're not saying that is easy, especially if you haven't done it before. You have to take baby steps and have someone or some people that can coach you on the side, that can
Yeah.
help you on the side, create your own network, that you can be taking, that can give you feedback that you may or may not want to hear, but it will be a constructive one that will continue to help you through your career journey.
Yeah, I can give a real good example from my perspective, from a project management, and so I started learning around change management, right? And so the organization that I was a part of was going through, we bring change management experts in, then we indoctrinate it into every leader's role, and it's how is that going to go? But I really started to say, I really like this, and so one of the things is where can you become a subject matter expert on something and then go after it, even if it's not on your team or
That's
in your department, especially if you're a part of a larger corporation. There's other spaces that you might be able to utilize that in. If you have diversity network groups or anything, you find a place in the space, in the organization to use those skills. So
absolutely
I started talking to other people who had a passion for change management. I started getting into the associations and things like that. And so now I can go and I train and help facilitate those sessions because not one, it's a passion,
right.
and two, it helps to keep my skill set up and me and in the forefront of my mind. And I have to absolutely include it in everything that I do every day. And now I'm recognized as a subject matter expert in that space, and I do it inside and with the work that I do externally. So find a place. How do I get my heart back in the game again? How do I spark that life into me? How do I want to get up the next tomorrow morning and do something different with more power and energy that I ever thought I had? Figure out where you want to be a subject matter expert and go for it. Learn, find those other subject matter experts in the organization that are doing what you want to do, and get in those circles and learn from them and put yourself out there that this is who I am and this is what I do and this is what I can bring to the table. And people will attract to that. They
Yes,
will follow that.
yes,
Eh,
absolutely.
They will follow that. And so I wanted to also just share what ask you, Dr. Alfred, share what else is on the horizon for you, what else is happening in your world and in your space, and how would you encourage people, inside or outside, just to keep that passion going? What things are you hearing that people might want to connect with? Those kind of things.
Yeah. Great. The what is really happening now is that uh, the in the workplace, in the workplace, the definitely the workforce is changing. As I said earlier, the pandemic has really created that. And if there is ever a time where the individual, the employees, kind of control their destiny, as we always say, this is really the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is usually not to your point earlier about what you have been doing, but is there other space, the skill set shortage that you can do?
Mm-hmm.
Individuals now really need to reevaluate. We've heard in our human resources community the great resignation, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard it too.
Yeah.
That's really is talking about talent shortages and all of that. So this is really a good time to reevaluate and say, what is it that I want to do? And how do I go out there and learn if I don't already have it? That's number
Right.
one. Number two, I will also say to both the individual and the organization, this is never a period now of status quo. I've been doing this, I'm going to continue to do this. That is gone.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they're both going to leave behind. Organizations are going to be folding up that they will not have the workforce, and the individual is going to be left without any.
Mm-hmm.
So, really reevaluating and finding out exactly how you're going to work going forward in all of that. The other thing that we're saying is really this whole hybrid model of the work environment.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I personally do not think that the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday workforce is ever coming back.
Mm-mm.
Organizations that think it's going to come back, they're just kidding themselves. It's going to be a matter of time
Right.
because employees have more choices now than they've ever had. And number two, like I said, in our case that we use is why will employee drive 3 hours commute, coming to work and going home when they can be that much that productive? That's almost half of the day's work that they do is sitting
Mm-hmm.
in a commute. It doesn't make any sense. So you're gonna hear that as well. That is coming as well. The other thing that is coming in addition to learning different skill set is organizations are going to be squeezing meaning we try to do more with fewer workforce
Mm-hmm.
because the fewer people in the workforce, of course, they're going to be demanding more, whatever that is. So
Mm-hmm.
organizations then have to start doing some trade-off. And those individuals, employees that have more skill set, that can then will be controlling their destiny more than those that don't. So that's
Mm.
like really what you're saying is changing, and that's really what it is today. So who knows what's going to happen, in the next 6 months or so. 2.5 years ago, we didn't know that the COVID pandemic is going to reshape the entire lifestyle, both in the workplace and our personal life. So you don't know. But the thing is, get prepared. Okay, get yourself ready. Okay, to be able to weather the storm, whatever may come next.
Yeah, that's really good. Because I've heard some folks complaining that or expressing, you know what, I'm left behind and now I'm doing the job of two people or two and a half people, no increase in salary, no increase in, none of this. I'm just supposed to come in and keep doing it. And that's a fast train to burning out the ones who are left behind. So
Exactly.
it's like people
And
have to, again, if you don't speak up and say, I can do this, but you have to tell me. Let First and foremost, there cannot be multiple priorities.
right.
Let me just say that.
Hmm.
So anybody who says it's all a priority,
Amen.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You cannot have multiple priorities.
Yeah.
So you have to, at least if you don't walk away with anything else today, know that you have a right to say, what is my priority? Which one do you want first and when?
Yes.
And that causes leaders to have to think through and know they can't have everything from one person. Come on. Go ahead, chime in, Dr. Alfred.
No, what I was just going to add to that is to say to the individual, don't be comfortable. Don't be
Yeah,
comfortable where you, because if you are, saying you're doing day in, day out, and that is why they might keep piling a lot of work for you, knowing that you are comfortable where you are, you're not going to say anything, you're not going to raise your voice. You need to ask, you need to talk, you need to raise your voice and be heard. And I'm not telling you to be combative. That's not what
right.
I'm saying. What I am saying is that you need to, again, find out exactly what you want exactly. But you can take control of your own destiny. That's very correct. You, I don't know, to say, hey, here's really what I like to do. They may say you don't have the skill set, then go and get the skill set yourself and then get it to do that. And then there are a lot of ways that you will be able to accomplish your personal goal. You got to create your personal goal. Nobody's going to do that for you.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you brought that up again because you mentioned that earlier, and I wanted to touch on that because we're used to organizations investing in us from a training perspective and learning perspective, but now this time may be shifting where we're willing to invest in ourselves. And
Absolutely.
I know I've seen that over the last few years where I've had to, and I spoke about that change management space. I've had to invest in going to the conferences myself to spend the money to get my designation as a certified change management professional myself.
Yes.
And so, if you don't take on the mindset that this is important enough for me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to control, as Laverne just said, my own destiny to the point that I'm willing to spend my dollars here as opposed to that Aruba vacation,
That's right.
then no, but and people are not putting those kind of dollars out for the
Exactly.
employees. Maybe sometimes you have to invest in yourself. Can you speak to that, Dr. Alfred?
Absolutely. Again, it go back to the conversations. If you do not invest in yourself in your development, who is going to be? Now, I will also tell you, you mentioned about organizations sending people to training and all of that. That's usually for people to currently do the job they are doing today to continue to do it better, which
Hmm.
is fine. There is nothing wrong with organization willing to do that.
Right.
Then the question then becomes, what do you as individual, where do you want to be and how do you want to be? It could be, and I think you touched on this earlier, about a different environment completely. It may not be what you're doing today. You talk about how you move to change management. Those are the things I'm referring to when you go to conferences. You have to plan, just like when you do your personal budget, you talk about what you're going to spend for shopping, what you're going to spend for vacation. You need to plan for what you're going to do for your self development.
Hmm.
Don't wait for the organization to do that. Because if they do that, fine. If they don't do that, hey, so be it. But if you wait for them to do that and then they don't do it, and then you're disappointed.
Right.
So investing in yourself, again, I'm going to say this over and over. I think I probably said it 3 times already. Is continuous learning is
Yeah.
the order of the day. You have to continue learning something new, something different, something to enhance what you're already doing. Because if you're not, you will be stuck in whatever role you are right now. You will not be seen as someone that can take that organization to the next level. You won't even be considered for other opportunities coming up.
Yeah.
And now you may say, well, I see a colleague who was doing the same thing I was doing and got promoted. Hey, you cannot control what you cannot control,
Right.
right? So those type of situations are going to happen in organizations. What we're talking about here is how, and I think Levant put it correctly, rightfully so, you control your own destiny. And the way you do that is by getting yourself ready. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen some of the younger colleagues that are coming into organizations, they've invested in themselves, learned different skills outside before they started coming into organizations
Yeah,
to supplement what they want to do. And I think some of us who have been in work environments for a long time where, you say, "Oh, I want to learn this," and they sent you off to do that,
yeah,
again, that was a way of yesterday.
yeah,
Let me just say that. That was a way of
yeah,
yesterday.
right.
Today, you could still, and I'm saying still ask,
Hmm.
because you never know where there might be dollars existing that can be spent for that.
Yeah,
But if the answer comes back as no, have a plan where
yeah,
you are already ready to invest
e-
in you
exactly.
and for you. And again, it might be for something that you want to do where you are already or where you're going, but have a plan for you. And
Exactly.
too often, some of us are just waiting to be tapped on the shoulder and say, "Oh, I see this in you, and I think you need to go do this."
Yeah.
People don't have time for that anymore.
No,
People aren't
exactly.
doing that anymore. So you have to start thinking about, where do I want to bloom? Where do I want to grow? Where do I want to spend my time,
Mhm.
again, developing and becoming my greater authentic self, my
That's
bringing my greater best self, because
right.
I know everybody who's listening to us is doing fantastic.
Yeah,
We might have a bad day here and there, but I know you're doing fantastic. But how
absolutely.
can I do even greater in this very different world that we're living in today? Before we end, I just wanted to touch on, because you mentioned it in your opening comments about the social things that are happening in our communities and how that might have been impacting our workspace and the workers coming into the workspace. And I'm bringing it up because run into so many people in the last few months who said, "I've been traumatized in the workspace." And I know we can say that people are dealing with a lot of trauma external. We've had loss of loved ones and people have lost jobs and things like that. And so we can think that people are coming into the organization with trauma, but sometimes we never recognize the trauma that we're causing them. So let's talk about the two, right? If we could do that in the last few minutes that we have, the social ills, and how do we, as individuals and organizations, address the fact that people have real life situations that they're dealing with, so that we don't, as organization or leaders,
Mhm.
exasperate those and really meet people where they are.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very important point. And I think that there's studies or research out there, but since the pandemic has hit, the mental illness has really increased across the board, and that is just because of the trauma that you have talked about. And organizations, some of them, has really realized the whole wellness program that is important for their workforce. Some organizations are investing more. Like my organization, we are investing more into the wellness program. Just
Mhm.
beyond the EAP, beyond your regular employee assistance program. That's it's more than that now. It's
Yeah.
really the whole wellness program. How I talked about some of the things that has really impacted people that have really lost some loved ones. Some loved ones are still ill, and then there are daycare issues, there are adult care issues, and then you have the work pressure that is creating an unbearable mental
Mhm.
issue for the workforce. Because to
Yeah.
your point earlier, people cannot bring themselves 100% to work if they have all of these issues
Right.
so that they have to deal with. So find out from your organization if they have a wellness program that can really do that, which cover a multitude of how to resolve mental challenges and all of that. And if they don't have it, they don't happen to have it, you can go out to your community and find out if they exist. They are set up now in everywhere. I'm sitting here in Boston. There are so many of them in Boston. I'm sure in other main cities and all of that. Go to your town community. Do they have any of these wellness program facility? Some may be free. Some may cost you a very meager, minimum membership or whatever to pay. But don't underestimate the power of that. That's really
Right.
where you see that going. Because if you are not 100%, all these things we have been talking about since we've been here this morning, you will not be able to do that. You got
Yeah.
to be 100% ready for that. So that's really what I would suggest and recommend for your viewers and your listeners.
Yeah, it's no more a stigma.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that we all have issues that we're dealing with,
Yes.
and I mean everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah, buddy.
has
Yeah.
is dealing with those kind of things. So
Yeah.
it's no more hiding it,
That's right.
because it's too costly. It's too detrimental. And when I say costly, I mean life costly.
Yeah.
It's cost, and so get help if you need it, because you cannot bring your whole heart back into the game again if you're not healthy and you're not feeling that. Dr. Alfred, I have had an amazing time with you
Oh,
this morning. This
thank
morning.
thank you for inviting me. I really had a great. Thank you very much. It has really been a pleasure to be part for this show.
I could go
Thank
on and
you.
on. The more you talk, the more I was like, oh, we should talk about this. Oh, we should talk about that. So you will be back. You will be back if you will be so kind to come back, because you
Absolutely.
just sparked so many more things that, wow, we should address that. Somebody else needs this.
And again, thank you for what you are doing for the community. This is really, really, amazing and is impressive. Taking that out and helping. So you really, a lot of kudos to you for doing that, for finding the time and taking, people go through this and trying to help everyone that watch and listen to you. So thank you very much. It was a really great pleasure to be part of this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, Dr. Alfred is out of Boston. And if you have any questions, even especially if you're watching the replay, thank you all, Laverne and everyone else who has been watching. Thank you, Laverne, for being a part of the conversation. And if you're watching on the replay, leave your comments. If you have questions for Dr. Alfred, I will get them to him, and he will respond back to that. Have an amazing day. And remember, I always say it takes all of us to create a healthy culture where every one of us can thrive. Have a great day. You stay right there, Dr. Alfred. And
Okay.
everyone else, have a great day. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone. Okay.